Hey everyone, Joe Soto here. Welcome to another episode of the Not Your Average Joe Show. I've got a really special guest today. I can't wait to bring him on. I've got Adam Markel with us. He is a #1 Wall Street Journal, USA Today, Los Angeles Times, Publishers Weekly bestseller, best-selling author of the book Pivot, The Art and Science of Reinventing Your Career and Life, and his new book, which is coming out on 2/22/22. I love it, called Change Proof: Leveraging the Power of Uncertainty to Build Long-Term Resilience. That is the topic of the show today, which is how do you build resilience and how do we make that our competitive advantage? And, this is just going to be an organic discussion and you're not going to want to miss it. So stay right with us. We'll be right back with you.
This is the Not Your Average Joe Show, where each week we bring you sales, marketing, and mindset strategies you need to get to your next level. And now, here's your host, international business mentor, Joe Soto.
Adam Markel is here in the house. Welcome, Adam.
Very cool, Joe. Awesome, buddy.
Hey,
I was listening to that and I thought, man, that's a lot of twos, yo. 2, 22, 22, but they're peace signs as well. So I love those twos.
Congratulations on the book that's about to come out. We're going to talk a little bit about it. More importantly, we're going to share insights from that book. Hopefully people pick up the book, and I know they will from watching this show. I am fired up that you're releasing it through a major publisher, and it's going to be all over the place. It's going to be in all the airports, probably all the books, all the bookshelves if people are still going to the bookstore. I was at a Barnes & Noble last week, and I'm like, I just got to support the bookstore. So
no kidding.
I bought a couple books, told my kids, I said, pick out some books because we got to support this. We got to support these bookstores.
Yeah, we want the bookstores to stay in business for sure.
Yes. Even though Amazon's taking over the world. Okay, so I am fired up to have you here. I know you've been a keynote speaker and shared the stages with some of the biggest clients in the world. I have here, companies like Herbalife and Jack in the Box and Harvard, and you have an amazing TED Talk. I would encourage everybody to go and watch. And we're going to talk about some of the insights you've shared in some of those talks and insights you share in the book. One of the cornerstones and philosophies that your world kind of revolves around is resilience. And it's a word I don't take lightly. And I'll just share with you as we get going here. When I first started in really sales training, which was back in 2001 for a company that was in New York, I had a CEO of that company tell me one time, he says, Joe, one of your most gifted characteristics is your ability to be resilient. And I really didn't know what he was talking about back then. I'm young and kind of dumb. And I'm like, I don't really know what he means by that, but you decipher it better than most. So let's talk about how the book came to be, but then let's define right up front. Your book's called Change Proof. I'll put links in the comments. Don't worry. I'll put links here up on the screen. You can go and find all of Adam's stuff. But Adam, let's start with explain to us what you mean by resilience.
Well, so resilience is an interesting word because so many people define it for themselves differently. And I'd like to start by just saying what resilience isn't to begin with.
Love it.
It's not our capacity to bounce back, as so many people think. It's not about how we endure things that are difficult in our lives or even suffering. And I say what it is based on research that we've done over the last many years, 3,000 assessments of leaders in organizations globally, from everything from Fortune 50 companies to startups. And what we've determined through that research, as well as through just my own personal experience, is that resilience is about how it is that we leverage uncertainty, how we actually leverage the power of adversity and uncertainty for one thing that is vital to our lives, and that is growth. It's essential to our personal lives. It's essential to the growth of our companies. We have to grow. And the way we grow is through times like the ones that we're living in, oddly enough. And people are they're so exhausted right now and even near burnout or burnout because of the fact that they're just dealing with a constant and ever-present uncertainty. So our way of looking at resilience based on research and what we do to create resilience, which I hope we'll get to talk about, is how it is that you actually make use of the times that we're in as some of the most powerful times of your entire life. I mean, the truth is we'll learn the lessons of this time 5 years from now, 10 years from now, just like 5 years ago or 10 years ago, you and I were chatting just before we got live, that the last time we probably were in a room together was on a stage or something about 10 years ago. And, that's the way time goes, right? You just snap your fingers and it's
Done.
10 years.
Yeah.
And the things that you were worried about, the things that I, may have been in fear or doubt or worry about 10 years ago, I have wisdom about now. I have perspective about those things. I see where it was that it led me to this moment. I see where it produced growth for me. So the great news about that is that it's the same in this moment, that we can consult the future. Part of the end of this book, the end of this book, which was just a joy to produce, and of course it takes a village to do it. McGraw-Hill's was wonderful to want to publish it, and all that. But the end of the book, we talk about how it is that we learn from the future. So the book is called Change Proof. The end of the book is really about how it is that we future-proof ourselves. And I'll tell you just the simple thing that I think we can all grasp at the moment is the future will always teach us something in the present, and that is that this is a moment of growth. And that's, if we just look at everything through that lens to start with, then we have a series of options that we didn't have when we thought, this uncertainty is frustrating. This uncertainty is exhausting. This uncertainty is somehow going to get in the way of my survival or get in the way of my achieving some greater goal. So resilience is definitely not about bouncing back. It's about bouncing forward.
I love that. What a great paradigm shift. Your attitude is, obviously coming through, and how you define and look at resilience much different than how other people look at it. I love it. You also have been known to say we've got to develop our resilience before we need it. Maybe explain what some of the first steps in doing that would be.
I mean, I'm just going to say this. You start to write a book about something, or in this case, we've been researching and writing this book for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
Be careful what you write about. So just on the eve of launching this book, I'm in Mexico. I'm going to pull in a prop for this in a second here. But I'm in Mexico just literally last week with my honey. I married my college sweetheart like this summer, be 33 years ago. We have 4 kids. I know we don't have half as many kids as you
Still
do,
a lot
Joe,
of kids.
but still a lot of kids, man.
Yeah.
And they're all out of the house. They're all grown. They're on their feet.
33 years.
No kidding. It definitely is. It's something so special. We were away on this romantic trip, and at the end of like the 6-day vacation in this beautiful place in Cabo, on the very last day, 2 hours before we're ready to go to the airport, I'm in the surf. And I get hit with like a rogue. I mean, I surf. I love to be in the water. I'm a waterman. A lot of my stories revolve around my days as a lifeguard. I got crushed, dude. This was like a punch wave. And this thing just took me up and then slammed me down. And I'm sitting here at this moment. I don't know if I can show you this with my leg, but dude, I am literally in a cast.
You are laid up.
And I got a crutch here, man. This is not like no BS story here. And this literally happened just a few days ago, right? Now, so here's the thing. We could discuss a lot of things, but I just want to say that in that moment when I realized I could not stand up, I'm in the surf and my wife is there. She was behind me, and I was like literally, I said, run, because this wave just popped up out of nowhere and it was about to crash. And so she turned and burned, and I went up the wave and came down. And then I'm lying in the surf and I couldn't put any weight on it. Yeah. I had this moment.
That's scary. Yeah.
It was terrifying, dude.
Yeah.
I mean, like, for real, everything. I travel all around the world. I'm keynoting for organizations. We do a bunch of consulting. I mean, I'm active. We just had a grandson. I'm a poppy now. I mean, I hold him. I change him. I get in the bathtub with him. I mean, I'm an active guy. I do things. Yeah. And in that moment, so many of the things that would be my normal would be the way that I would, would be the good status quo, like my life is good and all that. Like everything just in that moment got shaken. And even in this here I had to cancel a trip to go to England to be with my daughter who's like studying there. A lot of things immediately became like change. This book is called Change Proof. Immediately there are dozens of changes that result from the fact that my MRI says I got 2 fractures in my knee.
Gosh. Yeah.
And it's 8 weeks of convalescence, right? But in that moment, my question to myself was, what's good about this? What's good about this? What am I going to learn about this? And the level of sensitivity that I gained from it almost immediately, the love that I was able to experience in the people around me, the people at the hotel, the people that were driving us to the airport, the people that put me in the wheelchair and were carting me around the airports in both Cabo and in Phoenix and in San Diego when we got home. I mean, it was just like I was getting a dose of compassion in a way that I know is just something I needed, something I look at and reflect in my own way and say, where have I lacked compassion, or where have I not been seeing people or seeing situations the way, that I now can see them, because through this other lens, I'm going, I can't even do a lot of things for myself. I won't get into that, but I need help. I'm vulnerable.
This was an incredible story to kind of, in a long way, answer the question of how do you head off resilience before you need it. You had 2 questions that you asked yourself there. It wasn't, you said them quickly. You said, what's good about this? And what is there to learn from this? So I hope everyone watching, listening to this, some people might be listening to this as it gets put on the podcast channels and Apple Podcasts and Spotify and so on later, that you learn to adopt those questions and get them into your regimen of not just when you experience a hard time or a setback or a challenge or extreme change where the ripple effect was like what Adam just expressed, but that you have those 2 questions prepared ahead of time. Well, you knew to ask those. The brilliance is that you knew to ask those. Like, that came out of you because you had already preset those questions for when, maybe you were teaching it but didn't have to live it yet, but then now you're living it and you had those questions ready.
You literally just gave me full body chills, Joe. And it's part, I think, because your finger is right on the pulse of this, which is that there's a system that I was already working on from prior experiences and from the people that I'd interviewed and the research that we'd done with this really important assessment tool that we call the resilience rank, or rank your resilience assessment. And from 3,000 of these data points, we were able to establish certain things that led to the way this book is constructed to help people develop their resilience. And this 3-part system emerged: pause, ask, choose. These 3 simple things. So it's just what you said. Even though I didn't expect that wave, I certainly didn't expect to get rocked and knocked the F down.
You weren't ready for the wave, but you were ready for the change.
I was ready for the change. Exactly. Because when you said the question was, how do you prepare, for change? It's to anticipate it, to start with. That's the thing. People were rocked by the pandemic. They're rocked by any number of things. We're rocked by having to wear masks. We're rocked by vaccines. We're rocked by mandates. We're rocked by the inflation. We're rocked by it's like, what are you rocked by du jour? It's the supply chain. We're rocked by. How many things can you be rocked by and not become completely wiped out? And so our goal here is not to become wiped out. How can you be the best leader of your team, or the best owner of your company, or the best father or mother or friend or brother or sister or son or daughter? How can you be the best at any of those things if you're rocked by the changes that are ever present? I mean, that's the one thing that's a constant. It's kind of an oxymoron, right? It's the only constant in the universe is constant change. So to anticipate it is the key. And then to know what to do in that moment. Like, I was a lifeguard years and years ago, and I spent sort of the first 7 summers out of college just working at the beach. And I was a teacher during the other part of the year. And then I went to law school and became a lawyer and stuff. But I kept that job for 7 summers. The first summer I was working there was 19, and we lost someone in the surf, and we search and rescued him. That was a part of the way I started that TED Talk you mentioned earlier. And we didn't find him. And it was this devastating event. And we had to learn how to be resilient that summer. And I'll share a couple of the things that came out of that. But the bottom line is, anticipating change at the beach is everything, because the tide changes, the wind changes, the sand changes, the sun, everything is constantly changing. So you anticipate the change before it happens, so that when it happens, you're actually going, okay, this happened. Like I literally was lying on the sand and going, okay, this happened.
Yeah.
Like my knee, I cannot walk on my knee. This happened.
Yeah.
So it's a pause to assess. It's a pause to be out, not in a place of judgment or, anger even.
Yeah.
How outraged we are at times right now, right? You take a pause to ask questions. And then, like you say, we had those preloaded questions right there and then.
Yeah.
What do I have to learn here? What's good about this? What's the creative opportunity in this? And then once you've asked those questions, you get to choose. And I get to choose then in that moment, what's the best thing for this knee that I call Charlie now? What's the best way to love on Charlie? What's the best way to express something internally that will allow my body to start the healing process, to be actively engaged in the repair, in the recovery, so that I can get back right up on the stage and do all the things that I normally do. And so again, this book is really about recovery, ultimately leading to resilience. That's the thing that replaces the endurance model. That's the thing that replaces the burn the candle at all ends model, the win the Night Owl Award model. It's it's the model that allows you to recover incrementally throughout the day, so that you're not only at your best for longer periods of time and your capacity is greater to think critically, to take on challenges, etc., but also enables you to deal with that anticipated change. You might not know what the change will be, but you anticipate it. And then when it happens, you're there to do something that a lot of other people are not prepared to do.
Yeah, anticipated and prepared for it. And when you look at when you were telling the story of your recent accident, the questions just kind of came out of you very, you just spit them out. They didn't come out like, "Hey Joe, I had this special technique I used in that moment." You just talked it out. And I would venture to say you almost said it so fast you didn't know you said both questions. However, the fact that you go, no, it falls back on something you've been working on, you've been researching. It is, the premise of your work. You actually give it the steps, the name, pause, ask, and choose, and anticipate. But I also heard indirectly, I heard maybe it's your underlying core gratitude in all this as well. So, and because I think that if you don't have a little bit of gratitude for the situation, you can't appreciate it enough to ask these questions that are tough questions to ask in a moment of pain or even just challenge of change. So
that question came up when I was with the doctor. So I'm lying, I'm in my hotel room and they bring this guy, this amazing doctor that's on staff there. Yeah. And when he's looking at my knee and I'm watching his face, and I'm seeing the kind of dejection come over him, because he's looking at me and going, I got to put this guy in a plane and he's going to get the news like 2 days from now that this knee is fouled up or whatever the case is. I was thinking to myself as I was sitting there, what am I grateful for in this moment? And again, so that's
one of the questions then.
It is absolutely. I mean, and there's no, like, the book isn't canned in the sense of here's a list of 10 questions and kind of stuff like that. It's the concept of asking questions and how good we are or can be, I'll say, at asking questions. And actually, in fact, how poor we are at asking questions typically. And that's why it's not a practice or a ritual that we've gotten. That's why I think this book really is going to help a lot of people.
Yeah, and I like that it's not, hey, here's a 10 questions you should be asking. Maybe it's more of learn to think like the chef who understands the concept behind why you ask good questions, so you can have a better outcome as a result of this. I mean, you're the only person I know with a really wrecked knee, and you're out for 8 months, and you're going to have months of physical therapy. Probably
8 weeks, buddy.
8 weeks. And you're going to have, but you're also going to have, probably a few months of physical therapy and other things, to keep it healing. And you've got like the biggest smile during this whole interview about it. So, you asking the right questions also sets the direction for your mind. And I love that. And Rex, I know Rex is on
Two.
here and participating and has made the comment about directed questions, but that's exactly what this is. Yeah.
It is for sure. And again, the one thing that we can count on is the fact that we're gonna get things will rock us, and some will rock us, just a little bit. Like we
Yeah.
were in our house the other day, and the house shook a little. In fact, it shook a little, and then it shook a little more. We live in
Yikes.
Southern California, and we had a 4.2 earthquake, 15 miles
Yeah.
away,
Well, that moves
and
you. Yeah.
and it moves you. And there's things that will move you all day, every day. The question is that too many people are just trying to get to the end of this thing. There's no end to it. So we might get to the end of this variant or that variant or whatever it might be. We might get to the end of the supply chain problem, but it's not the end of the uncertainty. It's not the end of challenge. I mean, like, I know my own name is Adam. This is not the last time that we're going to be called for to be resilient. That's why the key is to create it now before you need it next. That's really, the premise.
So what do you maybe share with us some insights into what gets in the way of resilience for people? Let's talk about what gets in the way.
Well, for one thing, again, it's this idea that we have to redefine it. And for a lot of people, it's this big amorphous thing. And what we can do is chunk it down. I think for me, learning is easier when I'm able to get little bite-sized pieces of things and see how I, use them tangibly, apply them, and that kind of thing. So resilience is broken down in this book and in the philosophy that I share with audiences and organizations we keynote for are the mental zone, the emotional zone, the physical zone, and the spiritual zone. That those 4 zones create a holistic resilience when we're working on recovery rituals for those things. And that's the key, is that recovery. So let's use a different analogy. The Formula One, I don't know if you follow Formula One racing. My son Max and I, we love it, and we watch the 3 seasons on Netflix kind of thing, and it's awesome, man. These cars are going, I don't know, 200 plus miles an hour, right, for 72, 73 laps, and what's really remarkable to me is that they have to pit, required actually to pit, to go into the pit area, to have their tires changed, to refuel and all that. Because if they don't, if somehow or another that one of these smart, engineering firms could develop a car that could go 72 laps all by, without any pitting, they'd still get penalized time at the end. And the reason is that according to the rules, they know that if you're out on that track on bald tires or worn tires, you are dangerous. You are dangerous to yourself, and you're dangerous to all the other drivers. Yeah. And so the thing that I think is really remarkable is that when they go into that pit area, it's like 2 or 3 seconds, and they get a full kind of like refresh on their tires, their gas, whatever, and boom, they're right out on the track again. Yeah. And you could see a car that's like in the, maybe 5 laps from the end, and they're in first place, but they're on worn tires, and another car had just pitted and is a few seconds behind. The car behind in second place is going to win that race, because there's no way that person in those tires, those balder tires, can brake hard enough, can accelerate hard enough. So this is the thing I want people to really get, that when we're talking about the pit stop, it's a recharge, it's a regeneration, a refresh, a reset. We have to learn how it is that we do that routinely throughout the day. So yeah, I went away for 6 days to Mexico, came back, with crutches. Sometimes the long vacation isn't the answer. Okay. I'm not saying don't take a good long vacation, from time to time, but what really works, what's worked for me, what will work for me in rehabbing my knee and everything else are my day is made up of these small rituals from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to sleep that are all designed to create those pit stop moments so recovery. That I can keep. Yeah, exactly. And that's the game changer.
Yeah. I love the term recovery rituals. And that's really insightful advice for everyone listening to what Adam just said, is that, and I'd love to hear what some of those things are that you do during the day. And let's ask that. But for everybody listening, just being able to take your day and look at it. And most people don't plan their day out. And I'm a big advocate of looking at your day either the night before or the early morning of, and planning your day. And you're saying, I'm also planning in my recovery rituals, or at least I know when I'm going to take them, throughout the day. And I think I have a few of my own. Because I do the same thing. I go absolutely crazy staring at the screen for too long at a time.
Yep.
But I'd love to hear what some of your recovery rituals would look like.
Yeah, and I want to hear some of yours too. So,
Okay.
and it's both, because it is the fact that I'm already scheduling it into the day before
Yeah.
the day is in charge, right?
Yeah.
You're either in charge of your day or your day's in charge of you.
Yeah.
So I schedule everything, and I have somebody that handles my schedule, by the way. I mean, I work
Yeah.
with it, I
Yeah.
follow it, but I don't do that for myself either. But it's the stuff that you schedule, and then it's the what do you interchange? What do I need in the moment? I don't want anything to be canned. I prefer it to be organic, and I want it to be effective, which means it has to be fresh. It's like, anything that's stale isn't going to work. So sometimes it's a 20-minute or a 30-minute walk. Now, I'm not going to get that ritual accomplished at this present time, a 20 or 30-minute walk, by myself or with the dog or with the baby or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be replaced by something else. I start my day with to me, the most important 30 minutes of any part of the day for me is the first 30 minutes of the day. So I have a very specific waking practice. And I'll just, because we could talk all day about these things, it doesn't involve picking this thing up right away.
Yeah.
One of the things that our resilience rank assessment shows us is that people are practically sleeping with this, man. It's like strapped to their bodies.
Yeah.
And I get it. This is money. This is business right here. This is connection to the world. This is your lifeline. This is safety for a lot of folks.
For a lot of people.
And this is an addiction on top of it. And we're all addicts anyway. It's just a question of, where does it interfere with things in your life? And this is interfering with people in so many ways, because it's creating low levels of anxiety, almost consistent and constantly throughout the day. Cortisol is constantly flowing in our bodies like a cocktail because of this thing. And I'm not saying throw it out, because I have it here. I don't throw it out. But one of my little rituals is that I have it on vibrate most of the day. I have it on a grayscale. You can get rid of the colors and turn it to grayscale, so you're not itching to touch it because it's less attractive to you. Strange little thing, but you got to work with your subconscious, work with these subliminal messages that are being used by tech companies to get you to touch it, to get you to look at it. So just work and counteract that kind of thing, but on your own terms. Give yourself time away from it. What we did at the beach, I said we started that summer when I was 19 with a death, with this awful event. I worked there 7 more summers, and we never lost anybody again. And we were 20 lifeguards. And this is Jones Beach, the South Shore of Long Island. There were thousands and thousands of people in the water at the same time. How on earth could we have an impeccable record? It's because we were toggling. And this is the term that we use when we're teaching about resilience rituals, is that you toggle back and forth like a light switch between on and off. We were in the stand an hour, down from out of the stand an hour, in the stand, out of the stand, in the stand, out of the stand, on and off throughout the day. And on those off hours, we would eat our lunch, we would read a book, we would take a nap, we would work out, go into the lifeguard shack and lift weights and stuff like that. And on big days, when we needed everybody, all hands on deck, well, then we were prepared for that. So obviously, I'm not suggesting, for some of you, many of you perhaps, that you work for an hour and then relax for an hour. You don't need to do that, because like corporate executives will always say to me, hey, man, you can't tell that to my people, because it's not what needs to be done.
Right.
But you're actively engaged in one thing, one area of focus for 40 minutes, 50 minutes, which is typically how much.
It's a long time.
Yeah, it's a long time. And then you've got 10 or 15 minutes before you start that cycle again to be able to retool. Take that walk, sit quiet, close your eyes, take some nice deep breaths, get a green drink, or make something healthy for yourself to drink or to eat. Put your legs up a wall. This is one of my favorite rituals. Just literally sit with your hiney pressed up against the baseboard and your legs straight up the wall. And you can do that for 10, 15, 20 minutes with something dark over your eyes. And you can turn on Insight Timer or some other thing to listen to a meditation or 528 hertz frequency music. And 20 minutes later, man, it feels like you've had a 4-hour nap. You are better than sleeping. You are rested. And then you come back and go, okay, what's next? Like, I'm ready. I'm ready to fire. I'm ready to think about marketing. I'm ready to think about, make a decision about our rebrand. I mean, these are tough decisions, but you're making them most often. People are making them when they're exhausted.
Yeah.
And they're always exhausted. So the question is, how do we turn that back? And that's what I feel is strongly represented by the content in this book.
Yeah, that's great. This is very good. And I'm going to try that one, by the way, the feet on the feet up the wall.
You're gonna love that, Joe.
I am gonna love it. I'm really hung up on one of the other questions I had was on the recovery, and I think you've really been hitting on that really well. You say resilience. I know you talked about the 4 pieces. Resilience is more than just physical. It's the mental, it's the emotional, and it's the spiritual. And you kind of just went through several pieces right there that would fit almost every one of those. From the meditation to the going for the walk to the nutrition. You're not just feeding your body, you're feeding your mind with things that you could be doing. I hope everyone took a lot of notes there because you just kind of went through a bunch of little recovery rituals that a lot of us could adopt. Some of them I'm doing, some of them I need to be doing more of, like the walks. But like I do a lot of, I've been trying to replace my afternoon coffee ritual with replacing it with a like this. It's almost like a nutritional energy drink mix that one of my friends sent over to me, and just changing up the rituals too, so that way you're not habitually always doing the same thing at the same time every day. I think it also stimulate and help because I'm already seeing that add a different freshness to different times of my day by breaking it up that way.
Yeah.
Really
it
good.
has a lot to do with energy. It has a lot to do with the time of day that you do something, with the frequency, the duration, and also it will have to do with whether you're doing it alone or with other people. Because people who gain energy from being on their own, like I speak publicly all the time, and yet I'm an introvert. Go figure. A lot of people who are out in the public eye are actually introverts. So what it means to me is I gain energy alone, right? On my own, solo. And yet other people, they gain energy by being around other people, and that's how they recharge. So you just have to know that about yourself as well, because the rituals won't work if there's a disconnect there. And that's what falls in that spiritual category. It's not about religion. It's about where there's truly alignment. And the thing about this too, and you brought this up, is that some of these things, like a walk can be it can tick off all 4 of those categories. So I'll often say, don't get your shorts in a bunch about which one it is. We're always trying to put things in little, nice, neat boxes. And it's not about balance. I call BS on the whole work-life balance thing in terms of that, because this is about harmony. It's about creating harmony between these things, and harmony in our bodies, which creates homeostasis, creates equilibrium, creates a feeling inside of us that we're in a good place. When we're in a good place, we feel we're in a good place. We're kinder to people. We're kinder to ourselves. We're able to take on challenges that would otherwise take us out. There's so many things that come from creating this foundation for mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual resilience. And the thing about it when it comes to ourselves individually as well as in organizations is that we have to have permission. And so often it is people don't give themselves permission, and the people that they're leading don't feel that they have permission either, because culturally it's not seen as something that you reward, and that it's not rewarded. It seems almost selfish to be thinking about how you chop up your day so that if it's on the hour that you get 5 minutes to stretch and move your body, that becomes a thing that's not negotiable. You go, but you still got to get your report done. You still got to produce that content or whatever it might be. And that you're being recharging and resetting becomes secondary to these to-dos. So I think I want to say that only because there's a shift that's really required, a mental shift, a mindset shift. I feel really good because we've spoken for some really, really big companies in the last year, because people have been really in kind of tough spots, and mental health has been on a steady decline. And so I think that organizations are more open to this, more open to the fact that we can train it. Resilience is something you can actually learn at any age, and you can train it for others. I even got the honor of speaking at the U.S. For the U.S. Marines just a couple of months ago here in Camp Pendleton, both Marines themselves and their superiors, their officers, to talk about the culture within the military, because there's this wonderful thing, you don't leave people in the field, nobody's left behind. They get that. That's embedded in the culture. And yet at the same time, there's a culture of silence, that people don't talk about their problems. You talk about a great, divide or disconnect. And so, when people are not doing well in that space, whether it's, post deployment or while they're, still in service, they don't really have a lot of permission to speak about it. And that depletes them, and depletion leads to poor decision making. It leads to mistakes. it leads to so many things that get in the way of everything that we say we want in our lives.
There's an overarching theme here of just kind of giving yourself permission to take care of yourself. And that is the preparation needed to properly anticipate, that those big changes are going to occur, and to have those recovery rituals like in place for yourself. And, I hear your examples of, taking care of the physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and different ways you can do it. But that seems like the overarching theme. I've heard you say, even use the word, it's okay to be selfish and to take care of yourself first.
I think it's
that
selfless.
redefines resilience in and of itself. And you've done that so wonderfully, so beautifully in the book and here in this interview. I just really appreciate that.
Thank you, Joe. I talked over you there. I'm sorry.
No.
I think it's a reframe of a sort, but I feel like it's selfless.
Yeah.
It truly is. Because if I was depleted on that lifeguard stand, or any of my, comrades, my crew were in the same place, we couldn't have done what we did, man. I can't, to be a father of 4, to be able to stand up to the responsibilities of life, of the mistakes I've made, the errors in judgment of my own, you have to be resilient to do those things. It's selfless to develop your resilience, because it helps you to be there for other people.
Yeah, that's right. Fantastic. Wonderful.
Cool.
You really just rock through my questions. One of the mantras and philosophies, one of your declarations is, I love my life. You can see people who watch your TED Talk or watch your videos will see you're wearing the shirt often. It's either a shirt of resilience or a shirt of I love my life. And I really love that, because you're giving us the tools to make that, I think, easy for all of us with this new book, with the work that you're doing, the research that you're doing, the message that you're sending to the world. I hope you sell millions of this book. Change proof. The subtitle is Leveraging the Power of Uncertainty to Build Long-Term Resilience, which I think is fantastic. You explain throughout the book how this becomes a team's, a company, an entrepreneur's competitive advantage, a parent's competitive advantage in the marketplace and with their children. And it's nothing better that you could pass on to your kids than this incredible quality of being resilient. And the way that you define it and redefined it, you said reframed it, which is the right word, is something that I think the world needs to hear more of. So congrats on the book. I hope everyone picks up a copy. Go to changeproof.com and pick up a copy. You can go to resilientrank.com. The links will be below the video, on the page, in the podcast notes, etc. It's a free assessment you can take from Adam. They can also find you at adammarkel.com. Is that correct, Adam?
That's correct.
And get caught up on everything going on in your world. I know you have a podcast, your keynote speaking. You won't be for a while, but hopefully
man. We're still speaking
now. 3 months from now. Yeah, you're still going to do it virtually, right? I'm sure companies won't pass you up.
I'm going to be standing on a stage in a week, man. And
good.
Send
a picture and send it to me. I want to see. You have one of those cringing smiles. I'm smiling, but it hurts a little. No, I hope. I wish you fast healing, and thanks for being a guest today on the show. Would you come back sometime for our audience?
Joe, this has been a pleasure. You're a master at the interviewing technique, which is not an easy one, and I appreciated exactly how you took us through it. And yes, it would be my honor to come back.
We'd love to have you back. Thanks for being with us, Adam Markel, everyone. Until next week, I'll see you guys on the Not Your Average Joe show. Adam is not average. I'm going to challenge every one of you to not be average as well. Until next time.
Tune in next week for the Not Your Average Joe show with international business mentor Joe Soto.